if you don't matter.
Of course, go ahead.
Hello and welcome to today's session. I'm Francisco Javier López Bullo, and I'm the area coordinator for Murcia at TESOL-SPAIN. On behalf of TESOL-SPAIN, I'd like to welcome you to Mikaela Armelini's session on applying neuroscience research to challenging behavior in class, just to check that you are in the right session. I'll be the moderator for this session. Please use the chat box if you have any problem with sound. Can I ask you please to name yourself correctly in Zoom? Well, I think most of you have done this before. If you want, you can make questions through the chat or box or Q&A, through the Q&A section. We are going to be annotating them and we'll answer them at the end of the session. Furthermore, Mikaela will give you her email address at the end of the presentation. So please let me introduce her. Mikaela Armelini is a Cambridge certified teacher based in Argentina. She has got experience across all educational levels and teaching modes, including face-to-face, hybrid, and remote. She leads a CPD scheme, delivers webinars and online courses. You can find her on social media as Remote Teaching Today, a blog about teaching and learning, neuroscience in the classroom, learner engagement, online tools, among others. So, Mikaela, now I'll hand over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Frank. Thanks for the introduction. And I think we are ready to kick off then. The aims of these sessions are to gain better understanding of brain theories and also to evaluate and reflect on how trauma-informed classroom strategies can be effectively implemented. Then I like us to look at these pictures for some minutes and discuss, right? I want us to explore and challenge our assumptions, our deeply seated beliefs for a while. I want us to focus on the first picture, and I'd like you to tell me what is this kid is about to do, what he's doing, and why do you think he's doing this? You can activate your microphones or participate using the chat if you want. Okay, I don't know if you, Frank, have some answers in the chat. Don't know it yet.
Yes, I have seen some answers on the chat. They say making paper airplane to play with, and folding a paper, and maybe wants to do a house or a plane, as in the next photo. What I think is that this is not on the same mode as breakout rooms, so probably participants cannot mute themselves.
All right. Yeah, sure. Okay, we'll use the chat box instead then. All right. Yeah, definitely. This kid is making a paper plane. And why is he doing this? Why is it? What was the reason? What do you think? Okay, I will need your help also, Frank, here, if anyone is making comments about.
Well, yes, someone thinks that he may be unhappy with the results of his work, and the reason, other one says that he wants to play, to create, to feel free, or to throw it away to someone.
Excellent, brilliant, exactly. Yeah, great answers, people. yeah, actually, most of us will think of this as probably bad behavior, especially if you look at the second one. But yeah, it totally can be a part of the task. I don't know, a teacher created in order to help students to distract for a little bit of a stressful situation, I mean. It can be plenty of reasons. And I would like to give you some food for thought if you focus on this second picture, yeah. What the kid is, what is he feeling now that he's throwing away this paper plane, and what is he thinking, what's happening in their brain? So that's something we will be talking about a lot. But yeah, it's fun how the brain is always prone to jump to conclusions, and especially from our side as a teacher, right? But it's always good to assume that, to analyze and study our assumptions and presuppositions. So yeah, great. Let's start by defining challenging behavior exactly. Yeah, so we were analyzing the reasons behind it, and that all behavior is not always challenging or bad behavior. So I have seen that many of you already answered this in the poll list correctly. And if you haven't yet, I would like you to please answer. So the question is, which of the following best describes challenging behavior? The first reason is it interferes with children's learning, with teachers' ability to teach and children's opportunities to learn, and it puts children at risk for later social problems or school failure. This was the definition posed by Kaysa and Bronsminski. And I mean, actually, this book on challenging behavior by these authors is incredible, and I truly recommend you if you want to expand on this topic. So, do learners always behave badly intentionally, deliberately? What do you think? They do? I will check the polls as well, as this was on the polls list. And let's see, everybody says no. Thanks everybody for your answers. Yes, exactly. Not always. I mean, learners do not behave badly deliberately. And it's very important for us as teachers to understand behavior as communication. Yeah, behavior is always a communication of a need of something. That's why we need to help the students to find different ways, different strategies to cope with the stress, for example. And this explains also why learners find themselves under stress may find it difficult to behave appropriately in classroom settings. So the question here is, how can we help them to feel safe in class, right, as teachers? So now we will delve into some brain theories to better understand how trauma affects students and their behavior, and then we will discuss some trauma-informed classroom strategies as well. So we will start with one of my favorite, which is MacLean's theory of the human brain. So he describes it into neocortex, mammalian brain, and reptilian brain. Let's start by the reptilian brain then. Okay, the reptilian brain is the lower part, is the lowest part of the brain, and it's also called the primitive brain, and it's charged of the most basic functions of the body, like changing or adapting breathing rates or heart rates, body temperature, and these kind of functions. That's why it's called the primitive brain. Then we've got the mammalian brain, which is also called the limbic system or the emotional brain, because this is where emotions happen, basically. It's the center of emotions. And the neocortex, that is the part that we as educators are interested in engaging, mostly because it is in charge of learning. And that's where language acquisition occurs, for example. That's why it's really important to us as language teachers. And this is where language is processed, of course, and this is the reason why learners who are under stress, they might find it difficult to process language as well. So one idea to better support students is to use lots of visual aids and different techniques, multisensory techniques to help them better understand language, right? We will go deeper into this in some minutes. Right, and now we were going to move to Perry's inverted pyramid. If you look at this inverted pyramid, you can see that we can actually draw a parallelism with the previous model, yes, in the sense that the neocortex is in charge of the abstract processing, let's say, then relate would be the emotions part and regulating, calming down and staying regulated with the limbs, with the brainstem, sorry, or primitive brain. So let's start by regulating. How can we help students to help to stay regulated? One technique is breathe in and breathe out. Yeah, we're going to see grounding techniques here. And I would like you to do this with me. You can do it with your eyes open or with your eyes closed, you choose. So let's take at least 3 deep breaths. Hold it. Breathe out. Right. Again, breathe in. Breathe out. And then the last time. Breathe out. There we are. And my question is, if you did this with me, how are you feeling right now? Don't you feel a little bit, at least a little bit more relaxed? I'm sure the answer is yes. And that has a scientific explanation, actually. And it's because when we breathe in, we bring oxygen to the prefrontal lobes. And that's why this is very important to bring oxygen to the brain. That helps the brain to calm down, right, and relax. It really does. And it takes actually seconds. I mean, you can do it more times, of course, but it's a very effective technique. And you can also do it at the beginning of the lesson, for example, to prepare students And with young learners, you can use different games and poses, and it doesn't have to be all like mindfulness. It can be like the balloon techniques when you can use different, analogies. And of course, you can also use music and all that. The second is helping students distract themselves. Yeah, what can we do to get students distracted? So we can, again, train them with different grounding techniques. For example, getting them to look for a red object in the room, or actually get them to count how many pink objects they can see in the room, for example, when they are acting out aggressively, for example, or that's a way of putting their minds off a bit. Or if they are higher level students, you can use different techniques. Another one is getting them to count backwards in nines, for example. That takes concentration, and they will need to focus on something else, and they will change the focus if something is worrying them. And move, everybody move. There is one session, the session by Fiona Dunbar, Let's Dance, and she focused on this. I mean, everybody should see this session, it's amazing. And also she expands on the effects of moving on the brain. And that's very, very effective. I mean, from different perspectives, because when we move, I mean, several areas on the brain are activated. So that's why the brain is relaxed. And it's also very effective for learning. I always try to include some clapping, some tapping on the table, on the desk with my students. With drilling, you can use it as well. You can wrap some structures, some grammar structures, and that's really effective. Learners have fun, and that's also very, very important to relax the brain, right? Good. Now going on with Perry's pyramid, after the brain is relaxed and it's calm, we need to connect with students. Here is the emotional brain on stage. And how can we connect with the students? I mean, so after we apply some grounding techniques, it's time to talk, right? And validate their feelings. What we can do is to use short sentences and tell them it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. In this way, we are validating what they feel, we're relating, and then connecting with students. One way of connecting with them is telling them that we also have hard days, tough days, and it's really that we acknowledge, and we acknowledge that this is hard, there is a difficult situation, that is challenging, and that we happen to live that too. For example, we can also say that we apply different techniques to these. For example, you can say, okay, I know this is really, really challenging for you. I also feel this way. When I feel like this, I take deep breaths, and that helps me a lot. Or I go for a walk, or I turn my camera off, for example. So there are several techniques you can share with your students in order to connect with them. And then, of course, we need to help them reflect about the situation. This is the reasoning section, let's say. And again, it's very important that we validate their feelings, as we said in the previous stage, but now we need to reinforce the limits, right? We need to tell them that it's okay to feel that way, but it's not okay to behave inappropriately, okay? And then we can again train them or offer different alternatives of what they can do when they feel this way, because probably they don't know what to do. That's why they are reacting this way. I mean, this is all subconscious. So they are, as we said before, students do not behave badly intentionally. So that's why we need to train them to use different alternatives when they feel embarrassed, when they feel angry, when they feel in pain, for example. And now it's time for the most juicy part of the session. So what are some classroom strategies we can apply? We have been discussing some already, but here are a list. You will see different questions by different teachers. So this one is, how can I handle a disruptive student? So I want you to help me. What advice would you give this teacher? How would you handle a disruptive student? What do you think? You can answer through a chat again. Remember that we said that behavior is communication, right?
Okay, I'm watching the chat. I can tell you some answers. Do not take it personally and try to stay calm. Make that student your personal assistant for the class. First ask what's the matter. Do you remember you and I talked together about this?
We talked about this. Yeah.
Yes. Try to discover what's behind his or her story, maybe family matters.
Great answers, people. I agree with almost all of them. Exactly, all valid answers. And yeah, getting them, one of them to be your helper is a great idea. Yeah, to get them busy doing something productive. Brilliant idea. Yes, thank you. And about asking them what's the matter. Yeah, I understand. We want to know that, but do students have the answer to this question? Do they know what's the problem? Maybe not, right? And they will feel worse. So let's be careful with this kind of questions, yeah? Instead, we can ask open-ended questions like, how are you feeling at the moment? We will go, I mean, there is one example later on, but yeah, brilliant. And yeah, very, very good point, the one of always trying to find out the reason behind it, why learners are behaving that way. Students can get disruptive for several reasons. I mean, they can be struggling with a task that is too difficult or too demanding for them, for example, and we can get, I mean, we can help them to get the minds off a bit with this situation and distract with non-creative tasks. For example, I don't know, looking out the window or tidying the desk for a minute, simple tasks, you know, to help them relax for a bit so they calm down. And then we can follow the stages we mentioned before. Yes, once they are calm, we can talk, we can validate their feelings, and we can tell them that it's not okay. Yes. Second situation, second teacher. Sometimes my students try to annoy me or challenge me. Do you feel this way? And what do you think? How can we help this teacher? What advice would you give them?
Okay, of course, you can answer through the chat. I have seen also another two answers before this, which says that also it's a good idea to talk privately with the students.
Perfect. Yes, exactly. Yeah, we have to be careful though with the young learners, yes, for child protection reasons. But yeah, if yeah, with teenagers or adults,
Okay.
definitely.
Yes. We have got some answers. Be the
Great.
adult. Let them try to challenge you and then challenge them back. Model appropriate behavior and dialogue. Also, we need to reflect afterwards what's going on and be open and honest with them. and sometimes I feel like this, yes, breathe and count to 10.
Yes, yeah, we'll discuss about that later. We as teachers need to regulate first. Totally agree with that. Yeah, excellent answers, everybody. I do agree with all of them. As we mentioned before, and somebody said in the chat, we shouldn't take this personally, right? According to neuroscience research, the reason why people or students in this case behave badly is maybe because they feel embarrassment or they feel, they feel anger, anything, and they really don't know what to do. They learned this behavior in some other context, and they are just behaving the same way in a classroom. That's why we shouldn't take it personally. And yeah, all valid answers. And again, validate feelings and offer alternatives, like train them to use different techniques instead of, trying to be in charge or anything of the sort, right? But talking is the first step. Yeah. Third situation, teacher 3. How can I create a safe environment for learners who have experienced trauma? How can we do that? What do you think? Please leave your answers in the chat box. And Frank will be sharing. Great. Do we have some answers, Frank? Do you guys need more thinking time?
Well, we have got some answers over here, yes. Be calm and respectful, be kind and gentle, a lot of affection and care, and leave them be. Also good one for me.
Okay. Yes, exactly. Modeling as the educator, as the role model. Go on.
Yes. If you know the trauma, being careful with some topics and kind of normalizing the situation.
Definitely.
We should take the conversation to the whole class and ask how could we create that environment and see if the child also says or agrees in something. I guess it's useful to know they have a trauma first, then find the best way to deal with that student. And safe environment, working in reduced groups.
Interesting.
And I remember we have got almost 15 minutes, well, 15 or 10 minutes almost.
Okay,
Left.
Thanks a lot. Brilliant, yes. Yes, all valid answers. But we as teachers can also, from the teaching perspective, also create a safe environment for students, like establish clear routines, so learners know what to expect. So that will also help them to feel less anxious in a way, especially if they have experienced trauma. And about instructions, keep instructions clear, use simple language, imperatives mainly, break down instructions into steps, because learners affected by trauma, I mean, often they get anxious very easily and forget what to do. So particularly if there is a complex sequence of instructions. So that helps. I mean, everything helps. And so planning carefully, and also introducing elements of surprise or elements of fun in the lesson that really spark learners' curiosity. Yes, that's really important, and it's effective for learners who have experienced trauma. I mean, for everybody.
Mikaela, you can also check the poll in the poll result. There are also some answers.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, lovely. And yes, of course, as somebody mentioned before, be empathetic. That's key. Yeah. Being caring. Here I'm opening the poll. Lovely. Being confident and letting them to express themselves. Yes. Listening to them. Very important. Yes. Really listening. Good. Try to avoid any topics that might make them feel uncomfortable. Create a respectful classroom environment. Yes, all these are key, and also establishing clear classroom rules, right? So that everybody knows how to behave and what to expect, so they won't get anxious and yeah, about any unexpected situations. Teacher 4 says, what should I do if a student acts out in aggression? What do you think? What advices, again, would you give to this teacher? You can answer through the chat. I think we mentioned this a lot during the session. What are the steps to follow in a way?
I just can see an answer at this moment. It depends if they put themselves or others in harm's way. It's very difficult. Children with aggressive behavior, they do it again and again, a speaking group. Take them out of the stressful situation, give them a space to cool down.
Exactly. As you mentioned, Frank, in our rehearsal session, exactly, the first thing to do is to stop a learner who's acting out in aggression. By no means this student should be go on acting like this, I mean. So we should stop them. And then the cycle we mentioned before, yeah? First, calming them down, using a grounding technique. Or yeah, you mentioned separating them from the group, that can be an option. And then validating their feelings, talking. And the last stage we do, once they are calm, is to tell them, okay, this is not okay. It's okay to feel this way, but acting out aggression and behaving this way is not okay, right? Yeah, it's very important to set the limits. Yeah, lovely. Now, it's time for some do's and don'ts for the wrapping up part. So what do you think of the first one? Let students keep their hoodies on. Is that a do or a don't? What do you think? And always ask them what's wrong. Well, we discussed this before, but what do you think?
As I talk to you, usually don't.
Exactly. Okay. Usually
Also
don't.
depends on the student, the group, and the reasons.
Of course. Yeah. Anything on the chat?
Don't, but personally, I don't find a very serious thing. Don't, but as said before, first ask students privately why.
Great. Exactly. Well, now I tell you my
And
reasons.
yes, Michelle Morgan here suggests the same you told. Perhaps we need to pick up our battles. Yes.
Exactly. I thought it was what I was about to say. Yes. And yeah, this can apply for different situations, right? Like they listening to music in the classroom, I mean, with earphones, of course. We should pick up battles. Yes, I would say that's a do. Let them keep their hoodies on, as long as they are not presenting a destructive behavior, as long as they are participating, because they may feel embarrassed, and that's a way of hiding, or that's the way or the mechanism they learned to help them cope with this situation. So yeah, you can discuss this in private, as you said, and all that. But sometimes, yeah, we should pick our battles, definitely. And if it is on online lessons, online settings, you can even maybe introduce a game or I don't know, some funny activity with this, like you can coordinate with him or with her privately and say, okay, we'll tell everybody to look at the screen for a minute, and then you take your hoodie off. So everybody will see that something's changed. And then you, in a funny way, you ask them, or you effectively had their hoodies off. And asking them what's wrong, as we said before, is not a good practice, because maybe they don't have an answer to this question. And not having an answer and you asking them directly, that may be quite stressful for them and make matters worse. Yeah. Next one. The teacher should regulate first. Remember that regulating is to be calm. And the second, validate students' feelings by saying, please calm down. What do you think about these ones? Are they do's? Are they don'ts?
First do, second don't, till the moment everybody agrees.
Brilliant student.
Yes. 2 minutes.
Yes, perfect. We'll be rounding off. So yes, exactly. The teacher should regulate first, right? If you need to breathe in and breathe out 10 times, count to 10, as Frank said, go. But yeah, you need to regulate first, and you are the role model, so you need to calm down first. And yeah, telling students, please calm down, won't help really. So let's avoid direct questions. We mentioned before how to validate students' feelings, telling them it's okay to feel this way, for example, and similar expressions, yeah? So remember that students are not giving you a hard time. They are having a hard time. So that's why we need to help them in this situation, to support them, and don't take bad behavior personally, as you said. This is very important. And I would like to thank you, all of you, for participating, for being there. And yeah, I'm really grateful to Frank, you as well. I don't know if we shall move to the Q&A part, Frank.
Okay, just let me check.